The rain hammered against the windshield as Sarah Collins killed the engine 2 blocks from the target. Atlanta's industrial district sprawled before her like a graveyard of rust and broken dreams, warehouses gutted by time, factories surrendering to kudzu, the bones of American manufacturing left to rot in the Georgia humidity. "Control, this is 007. I'm going dark in 60 seconds. The voice in her earpiece crackled with British precision. "Confirmed, 7. Satellite thermal shows the compound went cold 40 minutes ago. Whatever happened in there, it happened fast." Sarah checked her Walter PPK, the weight familiar and reassuring. Beside her, Max sat perfectly still in the passenger seat, his amber eyes fixed on the shadowed building ahead. The Belgian Malinois wore his tactical vest, carbon fiber panels concealing MI6's latest surveillance tech, a camera mounted near his collar that fed directly to her heads-up display. "Ready, partner?" Max's tail thumped once against the seat. In the 7 years they'd worked together in Atlanta PD's K9 unit, she'd learned his language better than any humans. That single thump meant what it always meant: let's go to work. But this wasn't Atlanta PD anymore. 3 months ago, James Bond himself had walked into her precinct captain's office and changed her life forever. The legendary 007 was retiring, and he'd spent 2 years searching for his replacement. He'd found her chasing down an armed fugitive through Piedmont Park, Max bringing down a man twice his size, while Sarah coordinated backup. Bond had watched from a distance, seeing something in her that even she hadn't recognized yet. The training had been brutal. 6 weeks at a classified MI6 facility in Scotland, learning tradecraft that made her police academy look like summer camp. Weapons, languages, hand-to-hand combat, surveillance, counter-surveillance, infiltration. And through it all, Max had been there, receiving his own upgrades, enhanced detection training, tactical protocols, equipment that transformed him from a police K9 into something the world had never seen before. Now she was Agent 007, the first woman, the first American, the first with a 4-legged partner. And tonight was her first real mission. Sarah slipped out of the car, Max flowing silently beside her. The rain masked their approach as they crossed the empty street, avoiding the pools of sickly yellow streetlight. The compound loomed ahead, a 3-story industrial complex surrounded by a rusted chain-link fence that had more gaps than barriers. Intelligence said the Syndicate was using this place as a bioweapon laboratory. A rogue scientist named Dr. Viktor Petrov, formerly of the Russian State Research Center, had been developing something catastrophic. Tomorrow, world leaders would gather in Atlanta for the Global Security Summit, 40 heads of state in one convention center. The Syndicate planned to turn it into a massacre. Sarah's job was simple: find the lab, locate the weapon, and transmit the data back to MI6 so they could neutralize the threat. But as she approached the building, everything felt wrong. The fence had been cut recently, the metal still bright where bolt cutters had sheared through. The loading bay door hung half open, swaying slightly in the wind, and there was a smell, faint but unmistakable, that made her stomach tighten. Cordite, blood, fear. Max's ears flattened against his skull. His nose worked the air, analyzing scents in ways Sarah could barely comprehend. When he looked up at her, she saw it in his eyes. Danger, death, caution. She activated her comms. "Control, something's off. The site looks compromised. 7, we need that intel. The summit begins in 14 hours. Understood. Going in." Sarah drew her weapon and moved through the loading bay entrance. Max stayed at her heel, his body tense and ready. Inside, the darkness was absolute. She activated her night vision optics, and the world turned green and grainy. The warehouse floor was chaos, overturned tables, shattered glass, equipment smashed and scattered, papers everywhere, lifted by the wind coming through broken windows. Whatever had happened here, it had been violent and recent. Max growled low in his chest, not his attack warning, but something else, something uncertain. Sarah followed his gaze to the far corner, where a door hung open, leading to what the blueprints showed as the administrative offices. She moved toward it, each step careful, weapon up, breathing controlled. The hallway beyond was narrow and dark. Water dripped somewhere, a steady rhythm that echoed off concrete walls. Max's claws clicked softly on the floor, the only other sound in the suffocating silence. Then she saw the first body. Dr. Viktor Petrov lay crumpled against the wall, his white lab coat soaked with blood from 2 gunshot wounds to the chest. His eyes stared at nothing, his face frozen in an expression of terror and resignation. Sarah knelt beside him, checking for vitals she knew wouldn't be there. His body was still warm. This had happened within the last hour. Control, I have a deceased male, matches the photo of Petrov, appears to be execution style. Copy that, 7. The Syndicate must have eliminated him. Find that lab. But Max wasn't focused on the body. He was staring down the hallway, every muscle quivering, his nose working frantically. Sarah had seen him track explosives, drugs, and fugitives. She'd seen him alert to guns, knives, and danger. She'd never seen him look like this. "Max, what is it, boy?" He moved forward without her command, pulling against every instinct in his disciplined training. Sarah followed, her pulse quickening. They passed 2 more rooms, one filled with laboratory equipment, another that looked like a makeshift office. The chemical smell grew stronger, acrid and sharp, burning her nostrils, even through her respirator. Then Max stopped at a doorway and sat, his trained signal for detection. But he wasn't looking at the door. He was looking through it, into the darkened room beyond, and the sound coming from his throat wasn't a growl or a bark. It was a whine, soft, almost heartbroken. Sarah pushed the door open slowly, weapon raised, every nerve screaming that something was terribly wrong. The room had been a storage area, shelving units lining the walls, boxes stacked haphazardly. But in the center, partially hidden behind an overturned crate, something moved. Sarah's night vision caught it, small, trembling, unmistakably human. A child. She was maybe 6 years old, curled into a ball, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. Her clothes were torn and dirty, her face streaked with tears and grime. Long dark hair fell across her face, and her eyes, God, her eyes, stared at Sarah with a terror so profound it made the agent's chest constrict. "Control," Sarah whispered, her voice tight. "I have a civilian, female child, approximately 6 years old. She's—" The girl flinched at Sarah's voice, pressing herself harder against the wall, and Sarah saw it then. The blood on the girl's shoes, the way she kept glancing toward the hallway, toward where Petrov's body lay. The understanding crashed over Sarah like a wave. This was his daughter. She'd watched them kill her father. 7. Extract the child and continue the mission. We need that bioweapon data. Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but Max was already moving. He walked slowly toward the girl, his body language completely transformed. His tail was low, his head down, his movements gentle and non-threatening. Sarah had seen him approach frightened victims before, but this was different. This was personal. The girl's eyes widened as Max approached. She pressed harder against the wall, a small whimper escaping her throat. But Max didn't stop. He moved to within 3 feet of her, and then, deliberately, carefully, he lay down on the cold concrete floor. He stretched his body out between Sarah and the child, creating a barrier, a shield. Then he rested his head on his paws and looked at the girl with those amber eyes that had seen violence and chaos and never wavered. And he waited. The girl stared at him, her chest heaving with panicked breaths. Seconds passed. Sarah didn't move, didn't speak, barely breathed. She'd learned long ago not to interfere when Max was working, and right now he was working harder than she'd ever seen. Slowly, impossibly slowly, the girl's hand crept forward. Her fingers trembled as they extended toward Max's fur. When they made contact, Max's tail thumped softly against the floor, once, twice. The girl's face crumpled and she began to cry, great wrenching sobs that shook her small frame. She crawled forward, collapsing against Max's side, burying her face in his fur, her tiny hands clutching him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had shattered around her. And Max didn't move. He lay perfectly still, letting this traumatized child hold on to him, protecting her with his presence in a way no weapon ever could. Sarah's throat tightened. Control. I need extraction for the child. Now. -7. Secure the bioweapon data first. That's the priority. There's a terrified 6-year-old girl who just watched her father die. She's the priority. 740 heads of state. I know what's at stake. Sarah's voice was sharp, harder than she'd ever spoken to MI6 command. But I'm not leaving her. Send the extraction team. That's an order. The silence on the line was deafening. Then, stand by. Sarah holstered her weapon and knelt slowly, keeping her distance, letting Max be the bridge. The girl's sobs were quieter now, muffled against the dog's fur. In the green glow of night vision, Sarah could see the child's profile. Delicate features, so impossibly young, her whole world destroyed in a single night. "Hey," Sarah said softly, her voice gentle. "My name is Sarah. This is Max. We're here to help you." The girl didn't look up, but her crying stopped. She was listening. "I know you're scared. I know something terrible happened, but you're safe now. Max and we're not going to let anything hurt you, I promise. 7, extraction team is en route, ETA 12 minutes, but we still need that data." Sarah looked around the room, her tactical mind working even as her heart ached for the child. Laboratory, Petrov's daughter, hidden here probably by him in his last moments. If he'd been working on the bioweapon, if he'd tried to sabotage it, maybe he'd left something behind, something that could stop the Syndicate. "Sweetheart," Sarah said quietly, "did your daddy hide anything here? Anything he told you to keep safe?" The girl's grip on Max tightened, but after a long moment she raised one trembling hand and pointed to the corner of the room. Sarah moved carefully, following the gesture. Behind a pile of collapsed boxes, she found it. A small metal case, no bigger than a lunchbox, with a biometric lock. She picked it up, and her HUD confirmed what she'd suspected. Chemical signatures consistent with viral agents, but contained, stable, the bioweapon, or at least the research data. "Control, I have it. Transmitting now." She connected the case to her data link, watching as encrypted files began uploading to MI6 servers. While the transfer ran, she returned to the girl and Max, lowering herself to the floor a few feet away. "You're very brave," Sarah said. "Your daddy would be so proud of you." The girl finally looked up, her eyes meeting Sarah's. They were dark brown, red-rimmed from crying, but there was something else there too. A desperate need to believe, to trust, to find one person in this nightmare who wouldn't hurt her. Is he really gone? The child's voice was barely a whisper. Sarah's chest tightened. She'd learned in MI6 training how to lie, how to manipulate, how to say whatever was necessary for the mission. But looking at this little girl, she couldn't do it. "Yes, sweetheart, he is. And I'm so sorry." The girl's face crumpled again, and this time she reached not for Max, but for Sarah. The agent caught her, pulling the child close, feeling small arms wrap around her neck with desperate strength. Max shifted closer, pressing against both of them, completing the circle of protection. And in that moment, in a darkened warehouse surrounded by death and danger, Sarah Collins understood something James Bond had never explicitly taught her. Being 007 wasn't just about the license to kill, it was about knowing when to protect, when to choose one life over protocol, when to be human first and an agent second. Outside, she could hear the extraction team arriving, vehicles, footsteps, voices calling for clear. But Sarah didn't move. She held that child and let her cry, with Max pressed against them both, standing guard over something more valuable than any intelligence, any weapon, any mission. They'd saved the summit. They'd recovered the bioweapon data. The Syndicate's plan was dead. But more than that, they'd saved one little girl's ability to believe that somewhere in this dark world there were still people worth trusting. And that, Sarah realized, was what heroes did. The extraction team swept through the warehouse like a well-oiled machine. 4 MI6 operatives in tactical gear, weapons raised, clearing corners with military precision. Their team leader, a compact Scotsman named McTavish, took one look at Sarah holding the child, and his expression shifted from tactical alertness to something softer. Jesus, 7. Intelligence didn't mention a kid. Intelligence didn't know, Sarah replied, her voice low. The girl was still clinging to her, face buried against her shoulder, small body trembling. Max remained pressed against Sarah's leg, his eyes tracking every operator who entered the room. "This is Dr. Petrov's daughter. She witnessed his execution." McTavish's jaw tightened. He'd been in this business long enough to know what that meant. The nightmares, the trauma, the way violence scarred young minds. Medics outside. "We need to get her checked out, then child services can—" "No!" The word came out sharper than Sarah intended. She felt the girl's grip tighten at the tension in her voice. "Not yet." 7. "We have protocols. She's been through enough protocol tonight." Sarah cut him off. "She's terrified. She just lost her father, and she's holding on to a stranger and a dog because we're the only things keeping her from falling apart. We move her on our timeline, not yours." McTavish studied her for a long moment. He'd worked with Bond before, back when 007 was still the old-school martini-drinking legend. This new 7 was different, younger, American, and apparently with a conscience that complicated things. But there was steel in her eyes that reminded him why Bond had chosen her. "Your call, Commander, but MI6 wants a full debrief in 2 hours. The summit's still a go, and we need to verify that bioweapon data is complete." "It's complete. I transmitted everything from Petrov's case. Whatever he was developing, we have it now." Sarah shifted slightly, trying to ease the girl's weight without disturbing her. "But there's something else. The Syndicate killed Petrov. They wouldn't have done that unless he'd become a liability, which means he either tried to back out or sabotage the operation. Or both," McTavish said grimly. "His daughter, she say anything useful?" Sarah looked down at the small head pressed against her shoulder, dark hair matted with sweat and tears. "She pointed me to the case. That's how I found it. I think Petrov hid it with her, told her to protect it. He must have known they'd come for him. Then he used his own daughter as a hiding spot." McTavish's voice carried disapproval. "Or he was trying to keep her close, keep her safe until help arrived." Sarah felt the girl shift slightly, listening even though she pretended not to. "We don't know what he was thinking in his last moments. But he made sure the weapon stayed out of Syndicate hands, and he kept his daughter alive. That counts for something." Max suddenly tensed, a low growl rumbling in his chest. His ears swiveled toward the doorway and his hackles rose. Sarah's hand went instinctively to her weapon, but McTavish was already moving, hand raised to his team. "Stand down," he said quietly, then louder. "Sector's clear. It's just the medic." "Oh." A woman entered the room, mid-50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She wore civilian clothes under a tactical vest, and she carried a medical bag that had seen better days. When she saw the child, her expression transformed into practiced gentleness. "Hello, sweetheart," she said, her voice soft and accented. South African, Sarah thought. "My name is Dr. Nkosi. I'm here to make sure you're okay. Is that all right?" The girl didn't respond, didn't even look up. Her arms remained locked around Sarah's neck. Dr. Nkosi glanced at Sarah, a question in her eyes. Sarah nodded slightly, giving permission. The doctor knelt beside them, moving slowly, deliberately. Max's growl faded, but he didn't relax. He was still on guard, still protecting. "I'm not going to hurt you," Dr. Nkosi continued. "I just want to check a few things. Can you tell me your name?" Silence. The girl's breathing quickened, panic rising again. "It's okay," Sarah murmured, her hand moving in gentle circles on the child's back. "Dr. Nkosi is a friend. She just wants to help. Can you tell me if anything hurts?" The doctor tried again. "Your arms, your legs, your head." Still nothing. Sarah felt the child's heart hammering against her chest. Too fast, too frightened. This wasn't working. Every adult presence, every question, every attempt to help was just pushing her deeper into herself. Then Max did something extraordinary. He stood up, shook himself once, and walked directly to Dr. Nkosi. He sat down beside her, close enough that his shoulder pressed against her leg, and looked up at the child. Then he made a sound Sarah had only heard a handful of times. A soft, almost conversational whine, the sound he used to make when he wanted her attention for something important. The girl's head lifted slightly. Her eyes found Max, and something in her expression cracked open. "Your dog," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He's nice." "He is," Sarah agreed, seizing the opening. "Max is the nicest, bravest dog I've ever known, and he really likes you. See how he's sitting with Dr. Nkosi? He's saying she's safe, that we can trust her." The girl's eyes moved from Max to the doctor, uncertain, searching for any sign of threat. Dr. Nkosi remained perfectly still, letting the child process, letting Max do the work. "He won't let anyone hurt you," Sarah continued softly. "Neither will I, but Dr. Nkosi needs to make sure you're not injured. Can you let her do that? Max will stay right there the whole time." Long seconds passed. Then, slowly, the girl's grip on Sarah loosened. She didn't let go entirely, but she shifted enough to look at the doctor properly. "Okay," she breathed. Dr. Nkosi's examination was quick and thorough. No major injuries, just bruises and scrapes consistent with hiding in a warehouse, mild dehydration, early signs of shock, but physically intact. The real damage, they all knew, was inside, the kind that didn't show on any medical scan. "She needs fluids, rest, and honestly a child psychologist," Dr. Nkosi said quietly to Sarah. "But physically, she'll be fine. Remarkably resilient, this one." "She had to be," Sarah replied, watching as the girl's hand found Max's fur again, fingers twisting gently. "What about moving her? Can she travel? To where?" That was the question, wasn't it? Sarah's mind raced through the options. Child services would mean paperwork, questions, a system that would separate this traumatized girl from the only constants she had right now, Sarah and Max. A hospital would mean doctors, nurses, more strangers, more fear. And MI6's debrief would mean intelligence officers interrogating a 6-year-old about her father's work, about what she'd seen, about information she might not even consciously remember. All of it was protocol. All of it was necessary. And all of it was exactly what this child couldn't handle right now. Sarah's earpiece crackled. "7, this is Control. We need you back at the safe house for debrief. The summit begins in 12 hours, and we need to coordinate with NSA and Secret Service. Transport is waiting." Sarah looked at McTavish, at Dr. Nkosi, at the operators standing guard at the door. Professional soldiers, all of them, following orders, doing their jobs. Then she looked down at the girl, who was watching her with those impossibly old eyes, waiting to see if Sarah would abandon her like everyone else had. And she looked at Max, who sat between them all, the bridge that had made any of this possible. "Control, negative. I'm staying with the child." The silence on the line was absolute. Then, "Say again, 7. "I'm staying with the child," Sarah repeated, her voice firm. "She's a witness to a Syndicate execution. She has information about Petrov's work, and she's traumatized and terrified. I'm not handing her off to strangers when she's barely holding it together." "Commander Collins." The voice that came through now wasn't the usual controller. It was deeper, heavier with authority. M himself, the head of MI6. "I understand your concern for the child's welfare, but we have a bioterrorism threat to neutralize and a summit to secure. Your presence is required." Sarah stood up, carefully lifting the girl with her. The child immediately wrapped her arms and legs around Sarah like a koala, face buried against her neck. Max stood too, pressing close to Sarah's leg, a united front. "With respect, sir, you have the bioweapon data. You have Petrov's research. You have everything you need to secure the summit. What you don't have is this little girl's trust, and neither will anyone else if I walk away right now. This is highly irregular. So is a 6-year-old witnessing her father's murder by international terrorists," Sarah shot back. Sir, I'm not refusing the mission. I'm adapting to circumstances on the ground. This child is part of this operation now, whether we like it or not. She needs stability, and right now, that's me and Max. Let me handle this my way. Another pause. Sarah could practically hear the calculations happening on the other end. The risk assessment, the cost-benefit analysis, the balance between protocol and practicality. Finally, you have 6 hours, Seven. Get what you can from the child, keep her safe and be at the safe house by dawn. McTavish's team will provide security, but after that, she goes into protective custody. Understood. Understood, sir. Thank you. The line went dead. Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. McTavish was watching her with something like respect. That was either really brave or really stupid, Commander. Probably both, Sarah admitted. She adjusted the girl's weight, feeling the child's exhausted body beginning to relax. But it was the right call. Aye, maybe so. McTavish gestured to his team. All right, lads, we're running protection detail. Seven's primary objective is the kid. We secure the perimeter, we stay sharp, and we get them both to the safe house in one piece. Clear? A chorus of affirmatives. Dr. Nkosi packed up her kit, but she gave Sarah a card before leaving. Call me if she needs anything, any time, day or night. I mean it. Thank you, Sarah said, and meant it. The extraction convoy moved through Atlanta's pre-dawn streets like ghosts. 2 SUVs with darkened windows, driving routes chosen for minimal surveillance, maximum reaction time. Sarah sat in the back of the lead vehicle, the girl asleep in her arms, Max on the floor at her feet. His head rested on her boot, and every few minutes his ears would swivel, monitoring sounds she couldn't hear. McTavish drove, his eyes constantly checking mirrors and surroundings. She got a name. Sarah looked down at the sleeping child. I don't know. She hasn't said. Petrov had family. Wife died 3 years ago. Cancer. After that, it was just him and his daughter. Intelligence said he kept her existence quiet, probably worried the Syndicate would use her as leverage. Sarah's hand moved unconsciously through the girl's hair. Turns out he was right to worry. Bloody bastards, McTavish muttered. Using a kid as bait. That's low, even for them. They didn't know she was there. Petrov hid her before they arrived. He must have known they were coming, had maybe a minute's warning. Just enough time to hide his daughter and the bioweapon data, then face them alone. Sarah's throat tightened. He died buying her time to be rescued. And you gave her what she needed, McTavish said quietly. That thing Max did, lying down beside her. I've never seen anything like that. Neither have I, Sarah admitted. She looked down at her partner, who was watching her with those knowing amber eyes. I didn't teach him that. He just knew. Somehow he understood exactly what she needed, and he gave it to her. Dogs are smarter than we give them credit for. Max isn't just smart. He's... Sarah trailed off, searching for the right words. He's my partner in every sense. We've been through things together that most people can't imagine. He saved my life more than once, and I've saved his. We trust each other completely. And tonight, he made a choice, not because I ordered him to, but because it was the right thing to do. The SUV turned onto a quiet residential street, approaching a nondescript house that served as one of MI6's Atlanta safe houses. Lights were already on inside, the support team preparing for their arrival. Sarah shifted carefully, trying not to wake the sleeping child. McTavish, when we get inside, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Find out everything you can about this girl. Real name, background, family, anything. She's going to wake up eventually, and when she does, I want to be able to call her by her name. I want to tell her something about her father beyond how he died. I want to give her something to hold on to. McTavish nodded. I'll have it within the hour. They pulled into the garage, the door closing behind them with mechanical precision. The team moved efficiently. Perimeter check, interior sweep, security protocols engaged. By the time Sarah carried the girl inside, the safe house was locked down tighter than a bank vault. Max cleared each room before Sarah entered, his training taking over, even as his primary focus remained on protecting the child. When they reached the bedroom, a small, clean space with a queen bed and blackout curtains, he immediately jumped up onto the mattress and circled 3 times before lying down, claiming his position. Sarah laid the girl down gently, covering her with a blanket. The child stirred but didn't wake, one hand automatically reaching out to touch Max's fur. The dog shifted closer, and the girl's breathing deepened back into sleep. Sarah stood there for a long moment, watching them. This wasn't what she'd imagined when she'd accepted the 007 designation. She'd thought about car chases and gunfights, exotic locations and dangerous criminals. She'd trained for combat and infiltration, for thinking on her feet and staying 3 steps ahead of the enemy. No one had trained her for this, for standing in a safe house at 4 in the morning, watching a traumatized 6-year-old sleep beside a tactical K9, feeling her heart crack open with protective fury. But maybe, Sarah thought, this was exactly what being 07 should mean. McTavish appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. "Got what you asked for." Sarah stepped out into the hallway, closing the door softly behind her. "Tell me." Her name is Anya Petrova. 6 years old, birthday in December. Born in Moscow, moved to the States when she was 2, after her mother got sick. Better treatment options here. She's been in Atlanta ever since. McTavish scrolled through his data. Smart kid, reading above grade level, loves science, just like her dad. Went to a private school in Buckhead until about 6 months ago, when Petrov pulled her out. That's when he went underground with the Syndicate. Sarah's jaw clenched. He was trying to protect her, keeping her away from people who might ask questions. But here's the interesting bit. Petrov reached out to FBI 3 weeks ago, said he wanted to defect, wanted witness protection for him and his daughter, said he had information about a major terrorist attack. What happened? FBI was processing his request when he went dark. They thought the Syndicate had killed him. Turns out he was just waiting for the right moment. McTavish looked up. He was trying to get out, Commander. He was trying to save his daughter. He just ran out of time. Sarah closed her eyes, breathing through the weight of it. A father who'd made terrible choices, who'd gotten involved with monsters, but who'd fought to protect his child until his last breath. A little girl who'd lost everything, who'd hidden in the dark, waiting for rescue, that almost came too late. "Find out about the FBI contact," Sarah said. "If Petrov had a handler, they need to know Anya's alive. And they need to know her father died trying to stop the Syndicate. Already on it. Anything else?" Sarah thought about the day ahead, the summit, the threat assessments, the coordination between agencies, all critical, all necessary, and all meaningless if they forgot why they did this job in the first place. "Yes," she said quietly. "When Anya wakes up, I want to be there, no matter what else is happening, no matter who's calling or what they need. That little girl is going to open her eyes in a strange place, and I promised her she was safe. I'm keeping that promise." McTavish smiled slightly. "Bond would have just left her with a babysitter." "Good thing I'm not Bond," Sarah replied. "No, Commander, you're something better." As McTavish walked away to coordinate with his team, Sarah returned to the bedroom. She eased herself onto the bed beside Anya, careful not to disturb her. Max lifted his head, his tail thumping softly against the mattress. "Good boy," Sarah whispered, her hand finding his fur. "You did good tonight, partner. You both did." And there, in the pre-dawn darkness of a safe house in Atlanta, with a traumatized child sleeping beside a tactical K9 who'd chosen compassion over protocol, Agent 007 understood something fundamental. The mission would always matter. The intelligence, the threats, the global security, all of it was critical. But sometimes the most important thing a hero could do was simply stay, to be present when someone needed them most, to choose one life, one moment, one promise, kept over all the logical, practical, professional reasons to walk away. Max had known that instinctively. He'd made his choice the moment he'd seen Anya, not the choice of a trained tactical K9, but the choice of a partner who understood that some things mattered more than commands. And Sarah had learned from him, just as she'd learned everything else that made them an unstoppable team. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the summit, the Syndicate, the constant threat that came with the 007 designation. But tonight, they'd saved a life in a way that mattered more than any mission brief could capture. They'd given a little girl a reason to believe the world could still be kind, and that, Sarah knew, was what real heroes did. Dawn broke over Atlanta with the kind of golden light that promised heat. Sarah stood at the safe-house window, coffee cooling in her hand, watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, 40 world leaders were beginning their day, unaware of how close they'd come to catastrophe, unaware that a 6-year-old girl sleeping in the next room had helped save their lives. Behind her, Max stretched on the bed, careful not to disturb Anya. The girl had slept for 4 hours, fitful at first, then deeper as exhaustion won out over trauma. Sarah had stayed awake, monitoring both the tactical feeds and the small, sleeping form that had somehow become her responsibility. Her phone buzzed. A text from M. Briefing at 800. NSA confirms Petrov's data is actionable. Well done, Seven. Well done. As if it were that simple, as if they'd just closed a case and moved on. Sarah set down her coffee and returned to the bedroom. Anya was stirring, her face scrunching up in that way children do when consciousness returns unwelcome. For a moment, she looked peaceful. Then her eyes opened, and reality crashed back. Sarah saw the progression in real time: confusion, fear, memory, grief. Anya's breath hitched, her eyes widening as she took in the unfamiliar room, the strange bed, Max shifted closer, his nose nudging her hand gently. The panic receded slightly. "Hey, Anya," Sarah said softly, staying by the window, giving the girl space. "You're safe, remember? We're at a safe place. It's morning now." Anya sat up slowly, her hand tangled in Max's fur. Her eyes found Sarah, searching for something. Reassurance, maybe, or confirmation that last night hadn't been a nightmare. "My papa," she whispered. "He's really—" "Yes, sweetheart, I'm so sorry." Tears slid down Anya's cheeks, but she didn't make a sound. Just sat there, crying silently, holding on to Max like he was the only anchor in a storm. Sarah's chest constricted. She'd seen hardened soldiers break down with more noise than this child was making. "Can I sit with you?" Sarah asked. Anya nodded slightly. Sarah crossed the room and settled on the edge of the bed, close enough to offer comfort but not so close as to overwhelm. Max lay between them, the bridge he'd become. "Are you hungry? Thirsty? Dr. Nkosi said you needed fluids." "I want my papa." The words were barely audible. "I know." Sarah's voice cracked despite her training. "I know you do, and I wish I could give him back to you. But I can't. All I can do is keep you safe, the way he wanted. He told me to hide." Anya's fingers twisted in Max's fur. "He said bad men were coming. He gave me the metal box and said to keep it safe, to not let anyone take it. He said someone would come to help, and I should only give it to them." Sarah's pulse quickened. This was intelligence, actionable and critical. Every instinct screamed to press for details, to extract everything Anya knew while the memory was fresh. But she forced herself to wait, to let the child speak at her own pace. "He said," Anya's voice broke, "he said he loved me. He said to be brave. Then he hid me behind the boxes and left. I heard the bad men come. I heard them yelling at Papa. I heard—" She stopped, her whole body trembling. Max whined softly and licked her hand. "You don't have to talk about that part," Sarah said gently. "Not unless you want to." But Anya shook her head. "Papa said to tell the helpers everything. He said it was important. He said people could get hurt if I didn't." Sarah's heart broke and swelled simultaneously. Even in his last moments, Petrov had been preparing his daughter, giving her purpose, making her part of the solution. It was brilliant and heartbreaking in equal measure. "Okay," Sarah said carefully, "then I'm listening. Whatever you want to tell me, I'm here." Anya took a shaky breath. "Papa was making something bad. Medicine that makes people sick instead of better. He didn't want to, but the bad men said they'd hurt me if he didn't. So he worked on it, but he was also trying to break it, making it not work right." "Sabotage," Sarah murmured. "He called it that too. He said he was playing a game with the bad men, pretending to help them, but really stopping them. But then they found out. Anya's voice dropped to a whisper. 3 days ago, a man came to the lab. Papa called him Victor. No, that's Papa's name. The man was Constantine. He was really scary. He looked at Papa's work and got so angry. He said Papa had lied, that the medicine wouldn't work, that he'd wasted their time. Sarah's mind raced. Constantine. The name wasn't in the initial intelligence briefing, but it would be soon. What did this Constantine look like? Tall. White hair, but not old. Cold eyes. Anya shuddered. He looked at me like I wasn't real, like I was a thing, not a person. Did he hurt you? No. Papa begged him not to. Papa said he could fix the medicine, make it work right, but he needed more time. Constantine said. Anya's breath hitched. He said Papa had until yesterday, or they'd kill me first and make him watch. Then they'd kill him. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to find this Constantine, wanted to make him pay for terrorizing a child. But she kept her voice calm, steady. So what did your papa do? He worked all day and all night. He didn't sleep. I stayed at the lab because he was scared to let me out of his sight. He gave me books and his tablet and told me to be very quiet. I tried to help, but Anya's lip trembled. I'm just a kid. I couldn't really help. You helped more than you know, Sarah said firmly. You were brave. You stayed quiet. You kept the box safe. That's huge. But Papa still died. Your Papa died protecting you and stopping bad people from hurting others. That makes him a hero, Anya, and you're a hero too. Anya looked at her with those impossibly old eyes. Heroes aren't supposed to die. Sometimes they do, Sarah said quietly. Sometimes being a hero means sacrificing yourself so others can live. Your Papa did that. He saved hundreds of people yesterday, maybe thousands, including you. A knock at the door interrupted them. McTavish's voice. Commander, we've got a situation. Sarah stood, but Anya's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. Don't leave. I'm just going to the door, sweetheart. I'll be right back. Max stays with you, okay? Reluctantly, Anya released her grip. Sarah stepped into the hallway, closing the door to a crack. McTavish stood there with his tablet, his expression grim. NSA just flagged something. Petrov's data shows the bioweapon was a 2-stage system. The stuff we recovered was just part 1, the viral agent, but it's inert without part 2, a catalyst compound. Sarah's blood ran cold. We don't have part 2. No, and neither does the Syndicate, according to the research notes. Petrov never completed it, but here's the problem. He got close enough that someone with the right knowledge could finish the job. How long would that take? NSA estimates 48 to 72 hours for a skilled biochemist. The summit starts in 6 hours. Which means either the Syndicate has already given up, or McTavish trailed off. Or they have someone who can finish Petrov's work, Sarah finished. Another scientist. There's more. We've been monitoring chatter. The Syndicate's looking for something. They've activated every asset in Atlanta, tearing the city apart. They're desperate. Sarah's mind clicked through the possibilities. They're looking for Petrov's backup data. He wouldn't have kept everything in that one case. He'd have insurance, a copy somewhere. That's what we thought too. But we've searched his apartment, his lab, every known location. Nothing. Sarah turned to look through the crack in the door. Anya sat on the bed, whispering something to Max, her small hand stroking his ears. A 6-year-old girl who'd been at her father's side for days while he worked frantically to sabotage a bioweapon. A 6-year-old girl who might have seen or heard something crucial. I need to talk to her again, Sarah said. But carefully. She's already been through hell. McTavish nodded. NSA's breathing down our necks for intel. M wants results. But he hesitated. You were right last night, Commander. That kid needs you, so you do what you have to do. The rest of us will handle the political pressure. Sarah felt a surge of gratitude for this gruff Scotsman, who understood that some things mattered more than bureaucracy. Thank you, Mac. She returned to the bedroom. Anya looked up hopefully, and Sarah's heart clenched at the trust in those eyes. Trust she was about to test. Anya, I need to ask you some questions about your papa's work. Is that okay? The girl nodded slowly. When your papa was working on the medicine, did he ever talk about needing something else? Another part or ingredient? Anya's brow furrowed in concentration. The catalyst. He said the virus needed a catalyst to activate. He was trying to make it wrong, so even if the bad men made the virus, it wouldn't work. Did he finish making the catalyst? No. Constantine got angry because Papa kept making mistakes. Papa told me later they weren't mistakes. He was doing it on purpose. Smart man, Sarah murmured. Anya, this is really important. Did your papa have copies of his work? Maybe on a computer or a drive or hidden somewhere? Anya shook her head. He said keeping copies was too dangerous. If the bad men found them, they'd know he was trying to trick them. He said the only safe place was... She stopped, her eyes widening. Oh, what is it, sweetheart? He said the only safe place was in here. Anya tapped her temple. He made me memorize things. Numbers and words. He said it was a game like when we used to memorize poems together. He'd say them, and I'd repeat them until I got them perfect. Sarah's pulse raced. Anya, do you remember any of those numbers and words? Some, maybe. It's hard. There were so many. Anya's face scrunched up with effort. Alpha, 7, 7, Beta, 9, 3, Tango, 6. Sarah grabbed her phone, recording. Keep going, Anya. You're doing amazing. The sequence Anya recited was long and complex. Alpha-numeric codes, mixed with what sounded like chemical compounds. She stumbled occasionally, frustrated when she couldn't remember, but Max would nudge her gently, and somehow that helped her focus. When she finally stopped, exhausted, Sarah had 3 minutes of audio that might be the key to everything. You did so good, Sarah said, pulling Anya into a hug. Your papa would be so proud of you. Is it enough? Will it stop the bad men? I don't know yet, but you've given us a fighting chance. Sarah sent the audio to MI6's cryptography team, then to NSA's biochemical division. While she waited for analysis, she ordered breakfast for Anya. Pancakes, juice, fruit, normal food for a normal child, except nothing about this situation was normal. Anya ate mechanically, without real appetite. She kept glancing at the door, jumpier now, as if expecting Constantine to burst through at any moment. We're safe here, Sarah assured her. There are good people all around us, protecting us, and Max would never let anything happen to you. At his name, Max's tail thumped. Anya managed a tiny smile, the first Sarah had seen from her. He's really special, isn't he? He really is, Sarah agreed. We've been partners for 7 years. He's saved my life more times than I can count. Papa used to say that dogs are better than people. They're loyal and honest, and they don't lie or hurt you on purpose. Your papa was right about that. Anya looked at Sarah with sudden intensity. Are you going to hurt me or leave me? The question hit like a physical blow. No, Anya, I'm not going to hurt you, and I'm not going to leave you until you're somewhere safe with people who can take care of you properly. But then you'll leave. Sarah couldn't lie to her. Eventually, yes. I have a job I have to do, but I promise you'll be with good people, people who will help you feel safe again. I don't think I'll ever feel safe again. Sarah pulled Anya close, feeling the small body shake with silent sobs. Max pressed against them both, and they stayed like that. 3 beings bound by trauma and trust, trying to find solid ground in a world that had tilted sideways. Sarah's phone buzzed. The analysis was back. The codes are molecular formulas and synthesis procedures. With this data, we can reconstruct Petrov's complete research, including his sabotage. More importantly, we can identify which biochemists would have the knowledge to complete the catalyst. Running database now. A second message followed immediately. 3 possibles in Atlanta area, 2 have alibis. Third is Dr. Elena Vasquez, formerly of CDC, fired 2 years ago for ethics violations. Last known address, 2847 Industrial Boulevard. Sarah's blood chilled. Industrial Boulevard. Less than 2 miles from where they'd found Anya last night. Surveillance shows activity at that location within the last hour. Possible lab setup. Recommend immediate action. Sarah looked at Anya, at Max, at the fragile piece they'd managed to build in this room. She looked at the clock. 5 hours until the summit began. "Mac," she called out. He appeared instantly. "We've got a location. The Syndicate's trying to complete the catalyst. We need to move now." "What about the girl?" Sarah's jaw set with determination. "She stays here. Full protection detail. No one gets in or out without my authorization." "And you?" Sarah checked her weapon, her tactical gear. Max stood, sensing the shift in energy, his body tense and ready. "I'm finishing what Petrov started. I'm making sure his daughter's sacrifice, her father's sacrifice, means something." Anya grabbed Sarah's hand. "You're going to fight the bad men?" "Yes." "Promise me you'll come back?" Sarah knelt down, looking Anya in the eyes. "I promise I'll do everything I can to come back, and Max will be with me, so you know we'll look out for each other." Papa promised he'd come back too. The words hung in the air, heavy with loss and fear. Sarah couldn't promise what Petrov had promised. She couldn't guarantee safety or certainty. All she could do was tell the truth. "Your papa loved you more than anything in the world. He fought to protect you until his last breath. I can't promise I'll come back because sometimes heroes don't. But I can promise that if I don't, it'll be because I gave everything to keep you and a lot of other people safe, just like your papa did." Anya threw her arms around Sarah's neck, holding on with desperate strength. "I don't want any more heroes to die." "Neither do I, sweetheart, neither do I." Dr. Nkosi arrived to stay with Anya. The child didn't want to let Sarah go, but eventually Max's presence and the doctor's gentle reassurance eased the separation. As Sarah geared up, she could hear Anya in the other room, asking Max questions, her voice small but trying to be brave. McTavish assembled the tactical team. 6 operators, full kit, rules of engagement clear. Neutralize the threat, secure any bioweapon materials, take prisoners if possible, but prioritize civilian safety. And Sarah designated 007, with a Belgian Malinois who'd chosen compassion over protocol just hours before. Now they had to choose action over hesitation, violence over mercy. Because somewhere in Atlanta, the Syndicate was racing against the clock to finish a weapon that could kill thousands. And the only people who could stop them were a female agent who'd broken protocol to comfort a traumatized child, and a tactical K9 who understood that sometimes the most important mission was simply to be kind. "Ready, Max?" Sarah asked as they loaded into the SUV. Max's response was a low, focused growl. He was in working mode now, all business, the gentle companion replaced by the lethal tactical asset. But Sarah knew the truth. Both versions of Max were real. Both were necessary. And that was what made them unstoppable. As the convoy pulled out of the safe house, Sarah looked back one last time. Anya stood at the window, her hand raised in a small wave, Dr. Nkosi beside her. A 6-year-old girl who knew too much, who'd lost everything, who'd trusted Sarah and Max when she had every reason to trust no one. Sarah would not let her down. The hunt was on. Industrial Boulevard looked like every other forgotten corner of Atlanta's warehouse district. Crumbling concrete, rusted chain link, buildings that had outlived their purpose. But Sarah's thermal imaging told a different story. Heat signatures in the 3rd building from the corner, power consumption, inconsistent with an abandoned structure, and fresh tire tracks cutting through the weeds. "Control, this is 7. I have visual on the target location. Confirming 3. No, 4 heat signatures inside. Looks like a mobile lab setup. Copy 7. Summit begins in 4 hours. NSA confirms if they complete the catalyst, the bioweapon becomes fully operational. You are authorized to use any force necessary." Sarah checked her gear one final time. Suppressed Walther PPK, tactical knife, flashbangs, zip ties for prisoners. Beside her, Max sat perfectly still in the back of the van, his tactical vest bristling with MI6's latest surveillance tech. His amber eyes were locked on the building, every muscle coiled and ready. McTavish's voice came through the comms. "Teams 2 and 3 in position on the north and south exits. We've got the building surrounded. No one gets out." "Rules of engagement?" Sarah asked. "Take them alive if possible, but 7, if it comes down to them or the weapon, you know what to do." Sarah did know. She'd been given the same license Bond had carried for decades, 00 status, the right to kill in the field. But knowing and doing were different things, especially when she was still thinking about a 6-year-old girl who'd already seen too much death. "Moving in," Sarah said. She opened the van door, Max flowing out beside her like liquid shadow. They approached the building from the east, using rusted machinery and overgrown vegetation for cover. The morning sun was climbing higher, heat already building toward what would be a scorching Atlanta day. Max's ears swiveled suddenly, catching something Sarah couldn't hear. He looked at her, then at the building's side entrance, a rusted metal door that hung slightly ajar. "Good boy," Sarah whispered. "That's our way in." They moved quickly, silently. Sarah tested the door, unlocked, hinges recently oiled despite the rust. Someone wanted easy access. She pushed it open just enough to slip through, Max right behind her. The interior was dark, lit only by cracks of sunlight through broken windows high above. Industrial shelving created a maze of corridors, and the chemical smell was immediate, sharp, acrid. The scent of serious laboratory work happening in a completely inappropriate environment. Max's nose worked overtime, processing scents Sarah couldn't begin to identify. Then he alerted, sitting abruptly, his trained signal for hazardous materials detected. Sarah keyed her comm, voice barely audible. "Control, Max confirms bioweapon components present. We're going deeper." They moved through the maze, Sarah's weapon up, her senses hyper-alert. Somewhere ahead, she heard voices, a woman speaking in rapid Spanish, a man responding in English with a heavy Eastern European accent. "Don't care about your concerns, Doctor. Mr. Constantine expects results in 3 hours. If you cannot deliver, he will find someone who can. I'm working as fast as I can, but Petrov's notes were deliberately corrupted. I have to reverse engineer his sabotage before I can complete the synthesis. It's like solving a puzzle where half the pieces are lies." Sarah recognized the voice from the intelligence brief. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the CDC biochemist who'd been fired for cutting corners on safety protocols. Desperate enough, ruthless enough, and skilled enough to finish Petrov's work. "Then solve it faster," the man said coldly. "Mr. Constantine does not tolerate failure. Ask Petrov." Sarah eased around a corner, finally getting visual on the setup. They'd converted the center of the warehouse into a makeshift laboratory, folding tables covered with equipment, computers running analysis software, and at the heart of it all, a sealed containment unit that made Sarah's blood run cold. Inside that unit, she could see vials of liquid that glowed faintly under UV light, the viral agent, waiting for its catalyst. Dr. Vasquez was a small woman in her 50s, grey hair pulled back, her hands shaking as she worked. Beside her stood a mountain of a man, 6'5", 250, with the kind of build that came from a lifetime of violence. He wore tactical gear and carried an assault rifle like it weighed nothing. Sarah counted 3 more guards positioned around the perimeter. 4 hostiles total, plus 1 civilian scientist. Not great odds, but she'd faced worse. She was planning her approach when her earpiece crackled with an unexpected voice. "Sarah?" It was Anya, her voice small and frightened. "Sarah, are you there?" Sarah's heart stopped. This was an open tactical channel. Anya shouldn't have access. "Dr. Nkosi gave me her radio," Anya continued. "I remembered something. Something Papa said about the catalyst." "Anya, sweetheart, you need to—" "He said the catalyst has a failsafe, a temperature limit. If it gets too hot, it breaks down and becomes harmless. He built it that way on purpose, in case the bad men tried to use it." Sarah's mind raced. A thermal failsafe. If they could heat the catalyst above its stability threshold. "What temperature, Anya?" 80 degrees Celsius. He made me memorize it. 176 Fahrenheit, 176 degrees. Achievable with the right accelerant and a contained space. "Anya, you brilliant girl, you might have just saved thousands of lives. Does that mean you're coming back?" "I'm coming back," Sarah promised. "I've got work to do first, but I'm coming back. Now get off this channel before— 7, we have a problem." McTavish's voice cut in, urgent. Black SUV just pulled up to the north entrance. 3 more hostiles disembarking, and they're carrying bloody hell. They've got an external drive unit. They're planning to move the lab. Everything changed in an instant. If the Syndicate moved the operation, they'd lose their chance. And if they extracted the bioweapon components separately, Sarah's thermal solution became useless. All teams were going loud in 60 seconds, Sarah said. Mac, I need you to cut power to the building and seal all exits. No one leaves. Confirmed. On your mark. Sarah looked at Max. His eyes gleamed in the darkness, and she saw her own determination reflected there. They'd trained for this. Hundreds of scenarios, thousands of hours, all leading to this moment. Max, tactical mode. Engage on my signal. The dog's posture shifted subtly. Weight forward, muscles tensed, every sense locked on the targets ahead. Sarah counted down in her head. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The lights died. Emergency floods flickered on, casting everything in harsh red. Shouts of alarm from the guards. Dr. Vasquez screaming something about the containment field. Sarah moved. She took the first guard with 2 suppressed shots center mass, dropping him before he could raise his weapon. Max launched at the second, 70 pounds of trained aggression, hitting the man's gun arm and dragging him down. His screams were brief. Max's training included non-lethal takedowns, and the guard was unconscious in seconds. The big man near Vasquez spun, his rifle coming up. Sarah dove behind a shelving unit as bullets tore through the air where she'd been standing. She popped up 10 feet away, double-tapping him in the shoulder and chest. He staggered but didn't fall. Body armor. Max, disarm! The Malinois was already moving, using the maze of equipment for cover. He came at the big man from the side, jaws clamping onto his gun hand. The rifle clattered away as Max wrenched the man off balance. Sarah closed the distance, her knife finding the gap between armor plates. The guard went down hard. South entrance secure, one team reported. North entrance, contact. 3 hostiles, heavily armed. We're pinned down. Sarah grabbed Dr. Vasquez, who was trying to crawl away from the firefight. The catalyst! Where is it? I don't know what you're... Sarah pressed her gun to the woman's temple. Your choice, Doctor. Help me, or die here with your employers. 5 seconds. The refrigeration unit, the blue one, but you can't just... Sarah was already moving. She found the unit, a portable medical-grade refrigerator, humming quietly despite the chaos. Inside, she found what she was looking for. A sealed vial, containing perhaps 50 milliliters of clear liquid. The catalyst that would turn Petrov's sabotaged virus into a functional weapon of mass destruction. 7. North team is falling back. These guys have military-grade weapons and training. We can't hold them. Sarah's mind worked through the options at lightning speed. She couldn't let them take the catalyst. She couldn't let them take Vasquez, who knew how to synthesize more. And she couldn't risk the viral agent being released in the firefight. There was only one option that neutralized all the threats. All teams fall back to minimum safe distance. I'm going thermal. 7. If you use incendiaries in an enclosed space, I know the risks. Just get clear. Sarah pulled a thermite grenade from her vest, MI6 special issue, designed to generate temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit in a controlled burn. Hot enough to destroy the catalyst, hot enough to render the viral agent inert, hot enough to make sure the Syndicate got nothing from this operation. But first, she had to make sure everyone got out alive. Max, extract! The Malinois bounded toward her as gunfire intensified from the north entrance. The 3 new arrivals were pushing hard, professional soldiers who knew how to clear a building. Sarah had maybe 60 seconds before they breached the lab area. She grabbed Vasquez and shoved her toward the east exit. Run, now, or burn with your work. The doctor didn't need to be told twice. She scrambled away as Sarah positioned the thermite grenade in the center of the lab space, right next to the viral containment unit and the refrigerator holding the catalyst. All teams, sound off. Clear? Team 2 clear. Team 3 clear. North team is... Wait, one of them is breaking off, heading your way. 7. Sarah spun as a figure appeared in the doorway. Tall, white hair, cold eyes. Even in the red emergency lighting, she recognized him from Anya's description. Constantine. "Agent 007, he said, his accent thick, but his English perfect. "I've been looking forward to meeting you. The woman who thinks she can fill Bond's shoes. The woman who wastes her time saving children instead of completing missions." Sarah's gun came up, but Constantine was faster than he looked. His own weapon was already trained on her, and they stood in perfect mutual deadlock. "You're going to die here," Sarah said calmly. "In about 30 seconds, this whole building goes up in flames hot enough to melt steel." Constantine smiled. "Then we die together. But first you tell me, where is Petrov's daughter? She knows things I need." "You'll never touch her. Perhaps. But you won't be alive to stop me." Max growled, low and dangerous, positioned between Sarah and Constantine. His body was coiled, ready to attack on her command. But Constantine's gun swung to target the dog. "Call off your animal, or I kill it first. Then you. Then I have all the time I need to find that little girl." Sarah's mind raced. The thermite grenade would detonate in 20 seconds. Not enough time to ensure Constantine went down. He was a professional, would use his last moment to take her or Max out. And if both she and Max died here, who would protect Anya? "7, what's your status?" McTavish's voice was tense. Sarah made her decision. "Max, protect Anya. Emergency Protocol 7. The Malinois' ears flattened. He knew that command. It meant leave Sarah behind. It meant prioritize the principal over the handler. It meant everything he'd been trained for and everything he'd never wanted to do. But he'd been trained to obey. Max turned and ran for the exit. "Smart dog," Constantine said. "Now you and I—" Sarah didn't let him finish. She lunged forward inside his guard, her knife finding his gun hand. He roared in pain, the weapon clattering away. They went down together in a tangle of limbs and violence. 15 seconds. Constantine was strong, trained in Systema and Krav Maga. He broke Sarah's grip and landed a brutal elbow to her ribs. Pain exploded through her chest. He rolled, reaching for his dropped weapon. 10 seconds. Sarah kicked his hand away, the gun skittering into the darkness. She drew her own pistol, but Constantine grabbed her wrist, twisting viciously. Her finger tightened on the trigger, reflexively. The shot went wild, shattering equipment. 5 seconds. "You lose," Constantine hissed, his hands closing around her throat. Sarah's vision started to tunnel. She could hear McTavish shouting in her ear, hear Max barking frantically from outside, hear her own heart hammering against her ribs. But she didn't let go of the thermite grenade. She looked Constantine in the eyes. "No, you do." And she released the pin. The last thing she saw was his expression changing from triumph to horror as he realized what she'd done. Then the world turned white and hot, and Sarah was moving, rolling, kicking away from Constantine, diving toward the exit as the thermite ignited behind her. The heat was instantaneous and overwhelming. Sarah felt it sear her back, even as she scrambled forward. Constantine screamed. A horrible sound cut short as the thermal wave hit him full force. Sarah threw herself through the exit, hit the ground rolling, kept moving. Behind her, the lab space erupted in flames hot enough to turn concrete into lava. Hands grabbed her, McTavish and his team, pulling her to safety. Max was there instantly, licking her face, whining with worry and relief. "I'm okay," Sarah gasped, her throat raw. "I'm okay, boy." She wasn't, really. Her back was burned, her ribs were probably cracked, and she'd just killed a man in the most brutal way imaginable. But she was alive. Max was alive. And inside that inferno, the bioweapon was being reduced to harmless carbon. "The catalyst?" McTavish asked. "Destroyed. The virus too, and Constantine." "Then it's over?" Sarah looked toward the building, watching flames pour from windows, hearing the structure groan as steel bent and concrete cracked. "It's over." Her phone buzzed. Anya's voice, tearful and terrified. "Sarah, Max, please tell me you're okay, please." Sarah took the phone with shaking hands. "We're okay, sweetheart. We're both okay. We're coming home. You promised you'd come back." "I promised, and I keep my promises." As the fire department arrived, as FBI and NSA agents swarmed the scene, as the global security summit began across town with 40 world leaders completely unaware of how close they'd come to disaster, Sarah sat on the ground with Max pressed against her side. They'd held the line, against impossible odds, against a terrorist organization, against a man who'd used a child as a weapon and thought he could win. They'd held the line because they had something the Syndicate didn't. They had each other, they had a promise to keep, and they had a little girl who deserved to believe the world could still be safe. That was worth any burn, any fight, any risk. That was what heroes did. The MI6 medical team worked on Sarah's burns in the back of an ambulance, while McTavish coordinated cleanup with a dozen alphabet agencies. FBI wanted jurisdiction. NSA wanted the intelligence. Atlanta PD wanted answers about the explosion that had lit up their city's morning sky. And through it all, Sarah sat with gritted teeth as they treated second-degree burns across her shoulders and back, thinking only about getting to Anya. "Commander, you need to go to the hospital," the medic insisted for the third time. "These burns require... bandage them and give me something for the pain." Sarah cut him off. "I have somewhere I need to be." Max sat at her feet, his head on her knee, his eyes never leaving her face. He'd been checked over too. Minor scrapes from the fight, nothing serious. But there was something in his gaze that looked almost like reproach. She'd sent him away, made him leave her behind. "I'm sorry, boy," Sarah murmured, her hand finding his ears. "I had to make sure you could protect her if I didn't make it out." Max's tail thumped once, forgiving her, understanding in that way he always did. They'd been partners too long for grudges. Her phone rang. M's voice was clipped and very British. "Commander Collins, excellent work. The summit is proceeding without incident. 40 heads of state all safe because of you. NSA confirms the bioweapon threat is neutralized. Well done." "Thank you, sir. However," the word hung heavy, "your decision to send the Petrova child into protective custody will need to be expedited. She witnessed classified operations and has knowledge of—" "No." Silence. Then, "Excuse me?" Sarah sat up straighter despite the pain. "Sir, with respect, Anya Petrova has been through enough. She lost her father. She was traumatized by the Syndicate. She trusted me and Max when she had every reason to trust no one. I'm not throwing her into the system like she's just another asset to be managed. Commander, there are protocols." "There are also human beings," Sarah interrupted. "Dr. Petrov reached out to the FBI 3 weeks ago asking for witness protection for him and his daughter. That request was legitimate. He died trying to stop the Syndicate. Anya deserves better than to be treated as collateral damage." "What exactly are you proposing?" Sarah took a breath, knowing she was about to cross another line. "The FBI has a witness protection program. Petrov's request should be honored posthumously. Anya gets a new identity, a safe placement with a family who understands what she's been through, and a chance at a normal life. And I want approval to stay in contact with her. Not officially, not as Agent 07, but as someone who cares about what happens to her." "Gee," the silence stretched so long Sarah thought the connection had dropped. Then M's voice came back, softer than she'd ever heard it. "You know, Bond never once asked me for permission to care about someone. He simply didn't. That was his strength and his weakness." A pause. "But perhaps that's why we needed someone different. Someone who could do the job without losing themselves entirely." "Very well, Commander. I'll coordinate with FBI. The Petrova girl will receive proper protection and placement, and you have my authorization to maintain monitored contact as appropriate. But 7, sir, don't make me regret trusting your judgment over protocol." "I won't, sir. Thank you." Sarah ended the call and looked at McTavish, who'd been listening with an expression somewhere between admiration and disbelief. "You just rewrote MI6 policy in real time." "I just did what was right," Sarah replied. She stood up, wincing as the movement pulled at her burns. "Now take me to Anya. I made her a promise." The safe house was quiet when they arrived. Dr. Nkosi met them at the door, her expression relieved. She's been asking for you every 5 minutes. Won't eat, won't rest, just sits by that window watching for you. Sarah found Anya exactly where the doctor had said, curled up on the window seat, face pressed against the glass. When she heard footsteps, she spun around and her face transformed. "Sarah!" She launched herself across the room. Sarah caught her despite the pain, holding the small body close, while Max danced around them both, tail wagging furiously. "I was so scared." Anya sobbed into Sarah's shoulder. "The radio went quiet and there was an explosion and I thought you were like Papa, that you weren't coming back. But I did come back," Sarah said gently. "I promised you I would, and I keep my promises. You're hurt." Anya pulled back, her eyes wide, as she noticed the bandages visible at Sarah's collar. "The bad men hurt you. A little. But I'm okay. We're all okay." Sarah guided Anya back to the window seat, sitting down with Max between them. "And you helped us, sweetheart. That information about the temperature limit, that saved lives. Lots of lives." "Really? Really? You're a hero, Anya Petrova." The little girl's lip trembled. "Papa was the hero. He died stopping them." "He did," Sarah agreed, "and you helped finish what he started. You were brave when you needed to be. You trusted us when that was hard, and you remembered things that made all the difference. Your papa would be so incredibly proud of you." Anya was quiet for a long moment, her hand buried in Max's fur. "What happens to me now? I don't have anyone. Mama died, and now Papa's gone, and I don't have grandparents or aunts or uncles or anyone." Sarah's heart broke at the matter-of-fact way she said it. This 6-year-old who'd already learned that the world could take everything from you. "That's what I came to talk to you about. There are people who help children who've lost their families. Good people who will make sure you're safe and cared for." "You mean strangers?" Anya's voice went flat. "People who don't know me and don't care about me." "No, I mean people who've been trained to help kids exactly like you." "And Anya," Sarah waited until the girl looked at her, "I'm going to make sure you get the best placement possible. A family who understands what you've been through. People who will be patient and kind and give you time to heal. But you won't be there. Not all the time, no. I have a job that takes me all over the world, but I'm going to stay in your life. We'll talk on video calls. I'll visit when I can. And Max?" Sarah looked at her partner, who seemed to understand exactly what was being discussed. "Max and I won't forget about you. Ever. Promise?" "I promise." Anya threw her arms around Sarah's neck again, and they stayed like that while morning light poured through the window and Max kept watch over them both. Outside, the city carried on, unaware, safe, continuing because people like Sarah and her partner stood between the darkness and the dawn. Over the next 3 days, Sarah stayed at the safe house while the FBI processed Anya's case. She helped the little girl pack the few belongings they'd gathered for her. She sat with her during interviews with child psychologists and social workers. She held her hand when Anya had nightmares about her father's death, and slowly, carefully, she helped Anya understand that what had happened wasn't her fault, that being afraid was okay, that healing would take time, but it would happen. On the 4th day, FBI Special Agent Maria Torres arrived with news. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and 20 years of experience in witness protection. She sat down with Anya and Sarah in the safe house living room, Max at their feet. "Anya, I've found a family for you," Torres said gently. "Their name is Williams, Robert and Janet Williams. They live in Colorado, in a town called Boulder near the mountains. They have a son who's 12 and a daughter who's 8. And they have 2 dogs, a golden retriever named Sunny and a black lab named Bear." Anya's eyes widened slightly at the mention of dogs. She looked at Max, then at Torres. "Do they know about me? About what happened?" "They know you've been through something difficult and that you need a family who will be patient and understanding. They don't know the details. That's classified, but they know enough. And Anya, they're excited to meet you. Mrs. Williams is a teacher. Mr. Williams is a carpenter. They're good people. Will I have to change my name?" "Yes, for your safety. But you can choose your new first name. We'll keep it close to Anya if you want, or you can pick something totally different." Anya looked at Sarah, uncertainty in her eyes. "What do you think?" Sarah squeezed her hand. "I think you should pick a name that feels right to you. Something that makes you feel strong and safe. And I think Colorado sounds beautiful. Will you come visit me there?" "As often as I can. I promise." 2 days later, Sarah and Max stood in the private airfield as Anya boarded the plane that would take her to her new life. The little girl wore new clothes, carried a new backpack, and clutched a stuffed dog that looked remarkably like Max, a gift from Sarah. But when it came time to say goodbye, Anya clung to Sarah and Max with desperate strength, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to go. I want to stay with you. Please, Sarah, please let me stay." Sarah knelt down, ignoring the pull of her healing burns, and cupped Anya's face in her hands. "Sweetheart, listen to me. You need a home. A real home with a family who can give you stability and love and all the things you deserve. That's not something I can give you, not with my job, not with the life I lead. But the Williams family can. But I love you and Max, and we love you too," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "That's not going to change, no matter where you are. Love doesn't require you to be in the same place. It just requires you to remember each other and stay connected, and we will. I promise you, Anya. This isn't goodbye forever. This is just goodbye for now." Max pressed against Anya's legs, and the girl buried her face in his fur one last time. The dog stood perfectly still, letting her hold on as long as she needed. Finally, Agent Torres gently touched Anya's shoulder. "It's time, sweetie. The Williams family is waiting to meet you." Anya pulled back, wiping her eyes. She looked at Sarah with those impossibly old eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. "Thank you for keeping me safe. Thank you for coming back like you promised. Always," Sarah whispered. And then Anya was walking up the stairs to the plane, Agent Torres beside her. At the top, she turned back one more time, raising her hand in a small wave. Sarah and Max waved back, standing together until the door closed and the plane began to taxi. McTavish appeared at Sarah's side, his usually gruff voice unusually soft. "You did a good thing, Commander. The hard thing, but the good thing." Sarah watched the plane lift into the sky, carrying a little girl toward hope and healing. "I hope so." The summit concluded without incident. The Syndicate's Atlanta cell has been dismantled. Constantine is dead, his operation destroyed. By every measurable metric, this mission was a complete success. Then why does it feel like I'm leaving something unfinished? "Because you're not just an agent anymore," McTavish said. "You're someone who cares. That's what makes you different from the old guard. That's what makes you exactly what this job needs." 3 weeks later, Sarah sat in her Atlanta apartment, video call open on her laptop. On the screen, Anya, now going by Anna Williams, sat cross-legged on a bed in what was clearly a child's room, decorated with posters of mountains and stars. "And then Bear tried to steal my sandwich right off my plate," Anna was saying, laughing. Sonny told on him. She actually barked until Mrs. Williams came to see what was wrong. It was so funny. Sarah smiled, feeling the weight in her chest ease slightly. "Sounds like you're settling in." "It's weird. Everything's different." But Anna's expression grew more serious. "They're really nice. Mrs. Williams, she said I can call her Janet. She's teaching me how to bake. And Mr. Williams is building me a bookshelf for my room. And their kids, Jake and Emma, they're teaching me card games." "That sounds wonderful, Anna." "I still miss Papa every day. I still have bad dreams sometimes." "That's okay. That's normal. Missing him means you loved him. The dreams will get less scary over time, I promise." "Do you have bad dreams about what happened?" Sarah thought about the nightmares she'd had, Constantine's hands around her throat, the moment she'd thought she might not make it back to keep her promise. The look in Anya's eyes when she'd been so afraid. "Sometimes, yes." "What do you do when you have them?" Sarah looked down at Max, who was curled up at her feet. "I remember that I'm not alone, that I have Max and good people around me, and that we did the right thing. And I think about you, safe in Colorado, getting the childhood you deserve." Anna smiled, small but genuine. "Janet says that bad things happen, but they don't have to define us. She says we get to choose who we become. Janet sounds very wise. She also says I can get a dog when I'm ready. My own dog, like Max, is yours. That's wonderful, Anna. They talked for another 20 minutes about school, about the mountains, about all the ordinary, beautiful things that made up a healing life. When they finally said goodbye, Sarah closed the laptop and sat in the quiet of her apartment. Em had called yesterday with a new assignment, human trafficking ring operating out of Prague, infiltration required, high risk, standard 007 fare. She'd leave next week, but right now, in this moment, she wasn't Agent 007. She was just Sarah, a woman who'd made choices that defied protocol and tradition and everything James Bond had represented, and she had no regrets. Her phone buzzed. A text from Torres. The Williams family wanted you to know that Anna participated in show and tell today. She brought the stuffed Max you gave her and told her class about a hero dog who saved people. She's doing really well. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. She looked at Max, who'd been watching her with those knowing amber eyes. We did good, didn't we, boy? Max's tail thumped against the floor, once, twice. The same response he'd given 7 years ago when they'd first partnered up. The same response that meant, let's go to work. But the work had changed. It wasn't just about stopping bad guys and preventing attacks and carrying the legacy of a legendary number. It was about remembering that behind every mission were real people with real lives who deserved protection and compassion and second chances. It was about knowing when to fight and when to comfort, when to follow protocol and when to break it for something more important. When to be an agent and when to be a human being. James Bond had been a legend because he was willing to do whatever it took to complete the mission, regardless of personal cost. Sarah Collins would become a legend because she'd proven that sometimes the most heroic thing you could do was care about the cost. To prioritize one traumatized child over operational convenience, to risk court-martial for staying when orders said to leave, to redefine what it meant to have a license to kill by showing you also had the courage to protect. She'd held the line not just against the Syndicate, but against a system that sometimes forgot the human element. And she'd won not by being like Bond, but by being exactly what the world needed instead. In Colorado, a little girl was learning to laugh again. In Prague, a criminal network was about to discover that the new 007 was just as dangerous as the old one, but with a conscience that made her even more formidable. And in Atlanta, a woman and her K9 partner sat together in comfortable silence, knowing that they'd done something that couldn't be measured in mission reports or body counts. They'd saved a life in a way that mattered. They'd proven that heroes weren't defined by how many enemies they defeated, but by how much humanity they preserved in themselves and others. They'd shown the world that compassion and competence weren't contradictory, they were complementary. And they'd made a promise to a 6-year-old girl and kept it even when that was harder than facing down terrorists. Sarah Collins stood and stretched, feeling her burns pull, reminders of the price she'd paid. Max stood with her, ready for whatever came next. "Come on, partner," Sarah said, her hand finding his ears. "We've got a whole world to protect. One mission, one person, one promise at a time." Max's tail wagged, and in his amber eyes, she saw everything they'd been through together and everything they'd face in the years ahead. This was what heroes did, not for glory or recognition or a place in history, but because somewhere someone needed them. And they'd be damned if they let that someone down. The new 07 and her K9 partner walked into the future together, different from what had come before, but exactly what the world needed now. And in a safe house halfway across the country, tucked away in a box of precious things, a little girl kept a photo. A woman with kind eyes, a dog with amber stare, and between them, a child who'd learned that even in the darkest moments, there were still people worth believing in. Heroes who came back. Heroes who kept promises. Heroes who showed that the strongest power in the world wasn't the license to kill, but the courage to care. That was the legacy Sarah Collins would build, And it started with one small hand in her own, one terrified child who needed to believe that safety and love still existed. Mission accomplished.